I'm Doedle, and I'm here to bring you some good news about your Nintendo Switch. As you can see in the background, and it's here, right here, I have a Nintendo Switch. Shocker. I mean, it would be a bit weird if I was making a Nintendo Switch video without having a Nintendo Switch. Maybe. So in this video, I'd like to talk to you about Nintendo Switch repairs and go through step by step of what I did and how I did it to maybe give you confidence in yourself when you try this at home, if you want to try this at home. Because I did it, it was terrifying, but I did it and it worked, and I wanted to share it with you. I hadn't seen too many videos of people just trying things. Of course, I watched tutorials, but I wanted to see if regular people who aren't professionals and don't already have repair videos on their YouTube channels, I just wanted to see that somebody else had done it and succeeded. Because I didn't see it on the internet, or at least I couldn't find it, I'm gonna make it myself. I'm gonna take that leap. I'm gonna film myself potentially ruining my Switch. But thankfully, I didn't. That's why I'm continuing recording it and why I'm recording this intro now. Yay. I remember there are specific memories of me playing Animal Crossing on my Nintendo DS Lite when I was like 10, and I knew it would happen. At some point, Animal Crossing would get released for the Switch, and I knew at that point I would probably cave. For the first time in about 7 years, I would cave and get a Switch. So I heard about that in around December time of 2019, and Animal Crossing and the Animal Crossing Switch was released in March 2020. And March happened to be my birthday month, so after my birthday, I went and I got the Animal Crossing Switch, and I was so pleased. We drove about an hour outside of my town because they weren't selling it in any of the shops near me. Like, they'd all sold out immediately, so we had to drive out, picked it up, brought it back, and I spent the next 6 or 7 months playing Animal Crossing. This was also the third year of my university, so any time that I wasn't studying, I was playing Animal Crossing. And it was brilliant. It was absolute bliss. I do enjoy the game thoroughly. Although, like many others, I did also suffer with a bit of a dip in interest for the game, and I stopped playing my Switch for a few months. In summertime, I decided to take a trip to go see my brother, and I thought I would take the Switch. But the night before that I left, I plugged in my Switch to see if it would charge. Nothing. Nothing happened. I left it for about 3 or 4 hours. Nothing. Absolute nothing. I thought, it's dead, and I don't have enough time to fix it. So yeah, I left it. And recently I've come back to the UK and I've picked up my Switch again, and I decided to fix it. After trying a few hacks to see if it was actually dead, I decided the battery was gone and I needed to replace it. Now, I did consider sending it back to Nintendo to be officially repaired, but it was out of warranty. I'd had it for about 1.5 years at this point, and I wasn't too thrilled, shall I say, with the thought that I'd have to put it in a parcel and then send it over to somewhere where I don't know where it's going to be. It might get water damaged on the way. I know that some parcel systems like to throw around parcels. I can't take that risk and add to the price of my Switch repair. So Nintendo official repair was out of the question. I also looked into local repair shops. A lot of them around my area said that they used to do it and they don't do it anymore. I don't know why. They didn't really say, but that's what they told me, and I took their word for it, and I wasn't going to force them into doing it for me. But I had a very nice time doing it myself, so I'm gonna tell you about it. And yeah, that was my final option, is that I was gonna try it myself. I have made a few notes of what I did, and I I'm gonna read them out for you. I also have a few clips that I recorded that I'm gonna put throughout this video just to give you a break from my face every now and again. So, as my first note, I have put, realize your Switch is dead. I did, very fast. I was sad about it, you're probably sad too. I understand what you feel. Number 2, I tested different chargers because sometimes it can be the battery, it can be the actual USB port in your Switch, or it can be your charger that you're using. If you're not using the official Nintendo Switch charger, although it can happen with Nintendo Switch chargers as well, I don't know what their success rates are, but I wasn't using one because I'd lost mine. So you can, if you have multiple chargers around the house that are USB Type-C, you can test your Switch with them, because sometimes it can be the charger that's the problem and not your Switch itself. So after I determined my battery was dead, I went on the internet and I searched up battery replacement. Initially I was looking to buy a battery and the tool separately, but on my Amazon I found a listing that had both of those things in the same package, and it was under £20. That's amazing! I bought those immediately on Amazon and they arrived the very next day. I was so pleased to have these. It was so easy. I wasn't expecting it to be that easy. I thought I would have to wait about a month to get these in, but they arrived next day. It was instant satisfaction. I have to point out, if you're going to work on your Switch or anything electronic and take it apart, it is best to ground yourself. I grounded myself by having my bare feet flat on the ground, and I worked on a solid wooden tabletop. Didn't see this on the internet, but I seem to have it in my head that you should only work as much as you can with one hand. And there's a memory in my head of somebody telling me that if you get shocked and the current goes into your arm, because we are conductive, the current will find its quickest way out, and normally that will be through your other hand. It would have to travel through your heart. I didn't find this when looking for tips and tricks of how to ground yourself, but I did that because it's in my head. And if I didn't do it, I would feel bad and terrified the entire time. So I'm like screwing things out of this Switch while having my arm hovering over here. If that doesn't tell you I'm not professional, I don't know what else will. It was time to open this bad boy up. I had all the tools, I had the battery. Thankfully, the kit that I got came with instructions. This was very handy because it seems to be that there is a very specific way to take out the screws in the Switch. There are about 4 or 5 different types of screws. I suggest when you're taking these screws out is that you separate them and keep them separated. You can use plastic bottle lids for this, or jar lids, just so you can easily see where they are, but I used a bare trinket dish because it had separators. Taking apart the Switch was okay. I'm really glad that I had the instructions. I think if I just used YouTube tutorials and I didn't have the written instructions, I would have struggled, but that's because I'm more of a reader than a watcher when it comes to instructional stuff. So once I got the back case off of the Switch, I was then met with a RF shield, and the way to get the RF shield off is to unscrew a SD card reader that is attached to the top. Otherwise you cannot get the RF shield off at all to get to the battery. This was a tiny bit grisly because I could easily unscrew the SD card reader, but the connector was underneath this bit of black foam, so I couldn't exactly see how it connected to the motherboard below it because there was a hole in the RF shield that it connected to. I could not see how it disconnected. And I had to go back and watch a video of somebody doing it to know which way to pull it, because in the instructions it said pull it towards you, and I'm like, I'm not going to take that risk, because what if I pull it the wrong way and I break it? I mean, I think I could live without an SD card reader, but it's not necessarily something that I want to break if I can avoid doing so. So I looked, and you do have to pull it towards you. You have to pull it. So like, this part of my hand is the SD card reader, and this is its little connector, and this hand is the motherboard. So it's like this, and it connects this way, and you have to pull the SD card reader up, and it will just click off. That was terrifying. I don't like doing things like that where I can't see how it connects, because I think I'm just gonna break it. But I got the SD card reader off, and then I took off the RF shield. And it revealed the glorious broken battery that was in my Switch. When I was unplugging the battery, I made sure to try and keep my hands off of the rest of the motherboard, because the components are so tiny. If I had caused any damage to them, I wouldn't have been able to notice without a magnifying glass. They were so tiny, these little cute little chips. But yeah, little cute tiny chips are hard to see any damage on. I didn't want to cause any more pain and suffering to my poor Nintendo Switch. That's what I tried to do. Was just use my thumbs on the ends, try and hold it down like this. And I had to get that battery out. So you just unplug the battery, which is very easy to do. You unplug the connector. And I originally thought when I was going to replace this battery that the battery would just come out. But the instructions told me that the battery was heavily glued in. Thanks, Nintendo. I'm really, really thankful you did that. So this is the part where having another person came in handy, because what you need to do to get the battery out is you need to get a hairdryer. The instructions also recommended a heat gun, but I saw in the Amazon reviews that somebody used the heat gun and it had ruined their Switch. So if you can avoid using a heat gun, I suggest using a hairdryer. So what I did, I gave the hairdryer to my granddad, and he helped by holding the hairdryer above the battery, trying to concentrate the heat on the battery and not anywhere else on the Switch. And we had it about 20 centimeters above the battery, mainly to stop burning my hands on the hairdryer, because ouch. We started on a low heat and then a slightly higher heat. There were only 2 settings on our hairdryer that we had. And this is where the plastic tools came in. So the plastic tools were there so we could shove them underneath the battery and try and dig it up, because that glue would not budge. It took a beating. So did my hands. I don't have the scars on my hands anymore, but I used to have 2 puncture wounds on my hands because the little spatula thingy that they gave me had a pointy end, and I forgot that I was poking it into my hand because I was so immersed in trying to get this battery out. What I made sure to do as well, while we were trying to heat up the battery and the glue underneath, I would occasionally flip the Switch over to see if we were causing any damage to the screen, because I was afraid of bubbling. I didn't know what was underneath the screen, so every now and again I would check it to see if anything had changed. And thankfully nothing had changed and we weren't causing any damage to the Switch in any way. But yeah, once we got that battery out, we rejoiced. It was a celebration of the ages, finally being able to take out that battery, and I made a Twitter post doing a rude gesture to the old battery. That battery had already done me dirty by dying, and it did me dirty again by being so heavily glued in. After I removed the battery, it did leave some glue in the bottom and I chose to remove it. Now, before I say that I put this all together and it was completely fine, I did notice something when I was putting the new battery in, is that the old battery had a layer of foam on the top of it, whereas my new one didn't. Now that came into play later when I realised that bit of foam was to stop the battery from rattling around. So my Switch does still work, but I cannot move it Or at least I don't want to move it really rapidly back and forth because the battery rattles inside the case and it's a bit alarming, but I mean it still works. I think it will be fine. I also kept the old battery to the side of me so I could see how the wiring had turned and how the old connector had plugged in, because this one was identical, minus the foam. So I used it as a template. And it was a good thing I had it because the cabling had flipped over. It was like this, and then flipped over like this. Once the battery was put in, I put the RF shield back on, and I read the instructions backwards. It was the moment of truth, and I switched my switch back on. Switch my switch. Oh, funny joke. And the battery worked, thankfully. And I immediately had to do like 17 updates that took like 3 hours, but it was worth it. It was worth it. And I reveled in the satisfaction of playing the new Animal Crossing update. It's so good. It's so good. Oh my god, I'm so excited. This is taking longer than I expected it. Has that gotten lighter? Oh! I haven't changed the time. They think it's the new year. Oh no. Oh, I'm so glad it works though. Okay, now I've got it for the right time. There she is. Oh. Okay. I've got to wait for this to run down to about 5%, and then I've got to charge it to 100% uninterrupted. So I'm going to play Animal Crossing till it's 5%, and then I will go out and leave this on to charge, and hopefully it'll be fine. Ah! It's getting there. I've only got a short amount of time to play Animal Crossing. Ah! I'm still in the process of doing that. I may be on the 3rd time that I've done that, because the battery that I got lasts for ages. Is it still on? Yeah. This has been left for maybe like a day. I should have learnt my lesson from leaving it. And I was playing it for about 2 days straight, and it's still on 53%. That's amazing! This battery is really good. It's way better than the previous one that I had. Because I would play it for like an hour and it would be down to 0. I'm like, the heck? I can't take it anywhere. It's supposed to be a portable console, and it's not being portable. I may continue the 5%, 100% thing from now on, just as a precaution, because I'm so afraid of this happening again. I'm also choosing to play it every other day just to keep it in good health and to try and stop the battery from dying completely like the original battery did. And my last step was to enjoy your Switch. I did thoroughly enjoy my Switch, and I still am. Oh, I'm so pleased. You will understand, if you do this, the joy that you will feel knowing that you did this yourself. You don't have to rely on anybody else, maybe the Amazon seller in the instructions and the person holding a hairdryer, but you did this by yourself. Again, I didn't make this video to be a tutorial. I'm not a professional in any ways, and I do apologise for that. I'm just a regular person that fixed their Switch and did it successfully. And I wanted to make this video to try and give you confidence, and I really hope that I've achieved that, and you can look at your Switch now and think, I can do this. I can do this by myself. I am a strong, independent person who has the know-how now, and I've seen somebody else do it, and I can go watch a tutorial, or I can go read the instructions of my kit, and I can revive my Switch and continue playing it. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video of my journey on how I fixed my Switch and what I did, and the trials and tribulations and the things that I went through to fix my Switch. So I'll see you in the next video if you want. maybe you would like to subscribe or leave a like. And while you do that, I'm gonna go play my Switch for the next 5 hours. Goodbye!